Are you doing everything right on Zepbound and still not seeing the scale move? It may not be the medication that's failing you. It could just be your habits. In today's video, I'm sharing 7 sneaky ways that we self-sabotage and what we could do instead. Hi, I'm Jill, and I've lost 80 pounds with the help of Zepbound. And on this channel, I help you cut through all the confusion around Zepbound and weight loss in general so that you can reach your goal and keep the weight off. So let's get into it. Habit number 1 that could be sabotaging your results on Zepbound or any GLP-1 medication is drinking your calories. So things like fancy coffee, smoothies, juices, alcohol, and actually even protein shakes can add up quickly. And it's a lot easier to underestimate how many calories you're consuming when it's in liquid form. So you definitely have to be very mindful of that. The solution to that is to stick with water as much as possible. So it could be like flavored water or seltzer water. I actually really enjoy Bubbly's pineapple coconut seltzer. I love it. But it could also be like 0-calorie drinks like diet soda or Crystal Light, things like that. Now, I know that there's debate about that, like the artificial sweetener in there. Some people feel like that increases their cravings for sugar. So that's something that you'll have to experiment with. I haven't noticed that with myself. I can have Crystal Light and diet soda and things like that, and I'm fine, but obviously something to be aware of. Habit number 2 that's sabotaging your Zepbound journey is skipping protein. Now, protein is so important because it helps protect our muscle, it keeps us full for longer, and it preserves our metabolism so that we don't hit a stall. I like to aim for 120 to 130 grams of protein a day. Doesn't mean I'm perfect with that every single day, but it's what I aim for. That number could be different for you based on your size, activity level, and your goal. But I think it's important that you have a number that you try to aim for and be deliberate about it. If you just go about your day and you're not prioritizing protein, I guarantee you're not getting anywhere near what you're supposed to be getting. So make sure that that's a priority and something that you're focusing on each and every day. Habit number 3 that is sabotaging you is grazing all day long. And that's actually how I gained most of my weight. I was one of these people that was just constantly eating all day long from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed. I was grabbing a handful of this, a handful of that, a bite of this, a bite of that. And, you know, at the end of the day, it really does add up. It doesn't feel like it in the moment because they're like, you know, small amounts, but it does add up quickly and it can easily take you out of your calorie deficit. So the solution to that is to meal prep or meal plan. And I know that a lot of people don't like to do it. It is a bit of a pain. But I know from experience that when I meal prep, I'm much more likely to hit my protein goal and stay on track in my calorie deficit or whatever my range is. You don't even have to do like a whole meal. You could just meal prep, like batch cook, like your protein, like a big pot of chicken or something that you could then add during the week to your salads, or just make rice or veggies or whatever as a side. Even that I think would go a long way to make sure that you're not grazing all day long and that you're being really deliberate about the things that you eat and when you're eating them. Habit number 4 that's sabotaging your success is ultra-processed foods. So things like cookies and chips, and sadly, even things that are labeled as high protein can sometimes have a lot of sugar in it. That'll mess with your hunger signals and spike your blood sugar and spike your sugar cravings. So there's a reason why some of these like top food brands have exercise scientists, right? Their job is to make sure that they're coming up with a product that has the perfect blend of sweet and salty and fat, you know, to make sure that when we take a bite of this, it becomes irresistible and we can't exercise moderation and we have to just keep coming back for more. And I was actually talking to Simply Taisha about this the other day, and we were just saying how if ultra processed foods are a big part of your diet, it's going to be really hard to be successful on this medication. I'm not saying you have to eliminate it completely. Obviously, we all know that would be best, but it definitely shouldn't make up the majority of your diet or even half of your diet. This needs to be something that you have, you know, from time to time as a special treat so that you don't have to work twice as hard to deal with food noise or cravings or, increased appetite or anything like that. You want to be successful, and the way to do that is to eliminate as much of these foods as possible. Habit number 5 that is sabotaging you is eating too little. And I know that when you first get started on these medications, it's very easy to go hours and hours without eating. But I've spoken a lot about this in other videos. I have a whole playlist talking about how it's so important to make sure that we don't do that, because eating too little will stall out your metabolism, and you will eventually get to a point where you're just not losing any weight. So you want to make sure that you're eating enough to keep your metabolism going so that you continue to lose weight consistently. You definitely want to use Zepbound as a tool and not a starvation plan. When you're on these medications, it's very tempting to go as long as possible without eating because it makes it very easy to do that. But we really want to make sure that we're guarding against that as much as possible and making sure that we're fueling our body so that we can maintain our metabolism throughout this journey. This is especially important if you have a lot of weight to lose. You don't want to lose, 50 pounds and completely, bottom out your metabolism, but yet you still have another 50, pounds to lose. So definitely make sure that you're eating enough. Habit number 6 that I think actually a lot of us deal with is mindless eating at night. And this is actually a huge one for me because I go to bed pretty late. So there's actually several hours of time, like a big gap between when we eat dinner and when I actually go to sleep. So it's very tempting for me to scrounge around looking for things to eat, but that's not a good way to go because it definitely adds up and it adds up quickly. So the solution to that is literally just like close your kitchen. And I remember my grandmother doing that when I was a kid growing up, and she would literally say, the kitchen is closed, and nobody was allowed to go in there looking for food and getting, things out of the fridge for midnight snacks. Like, you just weren't allowed to do that. And, for her, it was motivated because she had just cleaned the kitchen. And so she didn't want us kids going in there and making a mess. But it's definitely a good habit to get into if you're trying to be mindful of how many calories you're consuming each day, because those calories at night definitely can add up pretty quickly, and it can easily throw you out of your calorie deficit. So you want to make sure that you just brush your teeth and you don't have anything else, and you just close your kitchen. On nights where I feel like I absolutely feel like I, want something, like I want a snack, then I will usually have Greek yogurt. You guys know how much I love my Greek yogurt. And I'll actually sprinkle in a couple of coconut flakes in it just to sweeten it. And it's usually enough to make me feel like I'm satisfying a sweet tooth without going over my calorie deficit, but also at the same time, I'm getting extra protein. So it's actually not so bad. Sorry to interrupt, but I do have a quick caution about fiber at the end of this tip. So make sure you watch to the end. Habit number 7 is actually ignoring fiber. So low fiber equals less satiety, less fullness. So fiber is a complex carb, a complex carbohydrate. Your body does not digest fiber in the same way it does other things. So it will literally sit in your digestive tract for longer, which works because it helps you feel full for longer. So if you're trying to lose weight, you definitely want to make sure that you are getting enough fiber so that you have that feeling of fullness. It'll just help overall to make sure that you're staying within your calorie range. Fiber actually also helps release leptin, which is a hunger hormone. And if you've watched any of my videos in my metabolism and GLP-1 playlist, you know that I've talked a lot about the importance of making sure that our hunger hormones are regulated. If they're out of whack, it's going to make weight loss much, much harder. But yeah, so fiber actually supports the release of leptin, and not just leptin, but it actually helps support the release of GLP-1, which obviously is a good thing when you're trying to limit your calories. So you want to make sure that you're adding veggies, fruits, beans, and grains into your diet. But just a quick word of caution here with fiber. If you're trying to be deliberate about adding more fiber into your diet, I just want to caution you about doing that through the use of supplements. Be careful how you go about doing this. I think the best way, if you're trying to be intentional about increasing your fiber, is to do that through whole foods, and let the supplements be something that you do when you're falling short. Like, don't let that be the majority of how you're getting your fiber. I'm not going to get into it in this video. I recently did a video where I talk about my fiber experience, and I'll link to that so you can take a look. But again, just make sure that if you're increasing your fiber, you're doing it slowly, mainly through whole foods, and that you're getting enough water. That's really important. So that's it, guys. 7 eating habits that can undo your Zepbound progress. This medication is amazing and it's life-changing, but obviously it can't do all the work for us. So hopefully these tips gave you some food for thought, and no pun intended. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and let YouTube know that you enjoyed it so it'll show it to more people. Also, subscribe if you haven't already for more tips on making Zepbound work for you long term. See you guys on the next one. Bye.